You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Sometimes we need to slow down and remember the simple pleasures in life. Good coffee, good books, and good company. Come on in. Take a seat. The coffee's just been brewed. Let's see who we have in the coffee shop today. Wow, what a wonderful day in the coffee shop. And as I look around, Chris Jones, how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
So what you got in that mug sitting there in front of you? Is that coffee, tea? What are we drinking today?
I'm not very much of a coffee drinker, so tea is my favorite.
I don't know a coffee.
And a lot of times it'll be chamomile tea.
I don't know a good coffee shop that doesn't have a nice selection of teas on hand. Hey, is that your book on the table? Reset the Future?
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about the book. What's the plot all about?
So Reset the Future is a story about impending disaster that happens in the near future, or actually late future in this case, and several scientists who eventually discover this, who are also time travelers, discover that there's no way to actually fix it in the present, so they decide to figure out how to fix it in the past. And the discovery that they made, they figured out that it basically occurred because of how we actually were affecting the environment and the ecology and all the different things that we were dumping into the atmosphere and the groundwater and all that. And so they decided that what they would do is they would introduce a power source, which was actually the same power source they use for the time machine that they have, and they introduced that in the past at a much earlier stage of development for the human race or whatever. And at that point, they basically reinvent time from that point forward, essentially reset the future.
Wow, that sounds fascinating.
The actual story is more of a love story than a science fiction, though. The two main characters, William and Diane, they actually are from two different centuries, but she comes back to his time to help him to develop that power source. And in the process, when they meet, they essentially fall in love first sight, and you get to follow that love story from that point forward as they progressively fall in love, and eventually at some point down the road they get married.
So have you written the marriage scene yet?
That book's already written, so yes, it's in there.
Oh, awesome. Can't wait to read it. So this power source, how did you make it up, or did you research it? What did you do to come up with this crazy power source?
It's completely made up. It's really not even, I don't even think it's scientifically possible, but the idea basically was that there's an element that is created, a super, super heavy element in this case, and the element has a quality about it that it can actually absorb energy from everywhere, dark space essentially. You don't really find out about that until the second book, of course, but as a result of that, though, it has the ability to generate an unlimited supply of power, which is in fact necessary in order to make the time machine to work, because it requires a significant amount of power to do that. They ran into some difficulties as far as the book is concerned, or as far as the story is concerned, because in the past, the ability to actually create that is impossible in generic terms, so they had to actually reinvent a lot of things to make it happen.
Sounds fascinating. So, what made you decide to have your two main characters fall in love, or was that your intention when you were plotting out the novel?
That was the intention from the start. That was the whole point of the story, in fact. The story around it was really sort of a trying to get the actual love story together, and I thought it would be a real interesting twist if the two main characters were from different centuries. So that portion of it was really just the scientific portion of it, science fiction, sorry. And the love story was the main story that I was trying to get across.
That's awesome. So, are you one of those writers you sit down and you plot out every part of your manuscript before you start writing? Or are you one of those people you just start writing and let it develop as it goes along?
So this is one of those situations where I'm sort of a new writer. I didn't really do this as a career. And in fact, this story is an idea that I started dreaming up when I was about 16 years old. And I spent the better part of 30 years thinking, I need to turn that into a book. And I just didn't. And then one day, probably about a year ago, I just said, I'm going to do it. And I just started writing. And the development of it went from the first to second to third and to fourth draft and then final manuscript. I don't think I'm like the typical writer, because I don't necessarily go and do an outline of what I'm doing. I just start writing and go from there.
Well, that
and
makes
since I already had
you what they call a pantser. You write by the seat of your pants.
Well, to be honest with you, that's pretty much the story of my life. I do a lot of things by the seat of my pants.
So
don't do a lot of planning. I just go and do what I want to do, and that's how it works.
So are you self-published, traditionally published? What method of publication?
I went self-published. Initially, I was going to wait it out and try to get a literary agent to go forward with me, but I was kind of pressed for time because I'd already sort of started promotion of the book when I started writing it. I did that for two reasons, but I wanted to get it out for the fans who had already pretty much indicated that they wanted the book quickly, and I didn't want to put them on hold for too long. And I also did that because at the time I was not quite sure how to actually find literary agents. So I was really just doing it for the purpose of getting it out, and because I didn't really know the process.
So how did you come up with this book cover? Did you design it yourself, have somebody else do it, hire someone to do it?
Well, essentially that was the publisher that put that together. I had the idea, and I didn't exactly get what I wanted, but I sort of went with it because I didn't really have a good way to explain what I wanted and make it come out the way I wanted, and without doing it myself. And I'm not that much of a artist when it comes to pictures and stuff.
Oh, trust me, I understand. I don't do my own show graphics either, so. What? You mentioned you're not a full-time writer, as far as it wasn't ever a career choice. So, what did you do before you started writing?
What I did, and I'm still doing actually, is I'm a software engineer. I work for a company called Ericsson, and basically I do tool support and software design for the different teams that I work with. And that's actually still my job. It was the only way I could support myself doing the writing as I'm doing it. So at some point, I hope I get rich enough doing this that I don't have to work there anymore. But for now, I'm still working there.
I think it's great. I mean, writers come from all walks of life. And the fact that you have that background in software and write software, and who knows, maybe your next series or your next book will have a few software twists or hiccups with the time machine or something.
Well, there is a plan for another series that does involve some software-related stuff. So there is a plan for that.
So this is a series. So are you mentioned the sequel. When does it come out?
Well, if all goes well, it'll come out in March of next year.
Awesome.
It's finished. It's with the publisher right now, so I'm just waiting on going through the motions of getting it published.
Now you said publisher. What? So do you have an independent publishing house that you use, or did you go through Amazon?
In this case, I went through an independent, sort of a hybrid publisher. In this case, basically they go and do a lot of the work to get it published and presented to the different outlets, and they will do some promotional work, but most of what I expect to be done will be done by me.
Well, that's great, and I think all authors, no matter what their stage and what books they write, they need to be willing to promote their books themselves, because if you don't feel comfortable promoting it, how can you expect anyone else to?
That's correct. It also, I don't think that you can rely heavily on the publisher or, for that matter, anyone else to do it for you. You have to do it yourself.
I believe that goes back to the old saying, if you want something done right, do it yourself.
Exactly.
So, how did you come up with the time machine vehicle for a way to get your characters from two different centuries?
Well, it's an evolving design, actually. The initial work all was around an actual machine that was the size of a room, and it was. If you look at the actual picture of it, it's a very complex design. Kind of hard to explain over the air, but that design just sort of came up. It just flashed in my mind, and I just started writing it. Eventually, it gets to a point where it's actually portable, and it's small enough that you could actually carry it in your pocket. But it's an evolving design that really just a flash in the mind, and just something I put on paper.
So what challenges, when writing the love story between your two main characters from these different centuries, do they face? I mean, what were your main characters' names?
Diane and William.
Yes, Diane's from the future. So is there anything she misses or wishes existed in the past that she either goes to the future and brings back other than the energy supply, or is there any challenges she has living in the past?
Well, I didn't really elaborate too much on that. The love story was my main focus, so I focused everything around the love story in this case, and what may have been missing and all wasn't really a priority. Now, I will point out that eventually the two of them end up in her future, which obviously adds some advantage to what William understood. But even though they went to his past to actually do a lot of the work, once they finished all of that, they eventually ended up in her future.
So they make their home in her future despite having met in the past. Interesting choice of residency.
Well, there's multiple reasons for that. In particular, they have a son at some point, and the idea was that they wanted him to get the best of everything he could learn, and the only way to do that was in the future. So
oh, wow.
They took him to hit her.
So they bring a child into the world and take him to the future. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that I went out of my way to make a note that he was over 200 years old, and his father was about half that.
Okay,
that was the interesting. That was an interesting twist I threw in there just to throw people off.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard triple-digit ages in quite some time in my reading.
Yeah, I thought that would be an interesting twist for it. I thought it especially would be interesting for people to try to figure out how in the world their son is older than both of them. there's even a future twist that's coming into this that you won't find out until the next story, and I won't elaborate on that yet.
Gonna leave me in suspense. That just means I'll
Well,
have to schedule you for another episode of Coffee Shop when you're ready to talk about the next book.
I look forward to it.
So what made you decide to make this a series?
Actually, there's probably a couple of reasons. The initial idea that I had for this, I always kind of thought that there was enough there that I could make more than one book. Certainly if I did it in one, there would be so much there that eventually people would, put it down and not want to go back to it right away. But I figured with multiple books, it actually makes it such that I can sell on the first book, and then the follow-ups will be almost, assuming people liked it, they would almost be drawn towards future books of that series.
That sounds like
I actually have a habit of putting. Sorry.
I just said that sounds like a logical strategy to me.
I actually have a habit of ending each of these stories with a lead up to the next story, so you actually get an idea when the story's done, what you're actually going to be getting out of the next story. That hopefully entices the reader to want the next book, and hopefully they'll be coming back for more.
Sounds like a good twist to me. So, how many books are you anticipating in this series, which is called Reversione?
That's correct. Initial plan was for 4, although this last one is probably going to be a 2-parter. I won't guarantee that yet because it's a pretty large story, and I think I can probably still fit it into one, but I'm thinking that it probably would be easier with a 2-parter on that one. And there is potential that there may be additional ones after that, but the actual story will be pretty much complete after the 4th one is done.
You see a lot of trilogies. You don't necessarily see series that go on after that, so I think that takes a lot of courage.
Well, it'll be interesting if it works out, especially considering the fact that I use a lot of time travel in this. Time travel is one of the hardest things to turn into a series, based on what I've been reading and even from my own perspective. It's not easy to write a time travel novel in general, but to do it in a series is even harder.
So do your characters...
The hard part.
So do your characters travel back and forth between the time periods, or do they tend to pick one and stay there for a while?
Well, it's for the first novel, it's several different time periods they go back and forth between. They tend to stay in a time period for whatever time they need to, but eventually they'll have to change to a different time in order to do something else they need to do for the story. For the future novels, it's going to be sort of they're stuck in certain time frames that they have to either escape from or return from. So it's going to be a little easier to keep up with the timetables and all. But the worst part about the next 2 stories is that it's in the past, which is actually a lot harder to write than the first book was because of the fact that you're actually dealing with history that people know. You got to get a lot of that correct in order for people to really stay interested in the book.
Trust me, I read a nationally known best-selling book that drove me crazy because the author, moved landmarks in places I knew because I'd been to the city where the book was set, and I knew that he'd gotten a lot of it wrong or took extreme literary license on where these things were placed. Mm-hmm. And it drove me bananas.
Yep, believe it or not, it's when I'm actually reading something, if it's in a time travel just happens to be one of the things I really enjoy when reading other books. And believe it or not, the one thing that I always key on is if they're doing something in history, if there's something that I'm familiar with in history and they don't get it right, that tends to bother me. So I made a point to try to make sure that I did as little historical reference as I could, and when I did use historical reference, I tried to make sure that I was as accurate as I could possibly make it.
Well, I think that's great advice for all writers, is to do your research, and when you need to use a fact, get it right.
Yep, definitely is. You don't want to leave a reader thinking that, hey, this isn't even remotely like we know it. Why are you doing this?
I always use the analogy, it would be like putting the Washington Monument in the middle of Detroit.
Well, I guess if it fits.
I can't think of too many reasons the Washington Monument would show up in downtown Detroit.
I wouldn't either, but who knows?
Oh, I'm sure someone will write that story. And who knows, maybe I'll get them on the air as a guest and get to ask my questions about that one. But for right now, the Washington Monument is firmly set in D.C. So you work a day job, so do you come home every evening and write? Or do you get up early? What's your schedule like on a day-to-day, on a writing day?
Actually, I don't really have a schedule per se when it comes to writing. I do a lot of it in the morning, but I don't necessarily stick to a morning schedule for it. I basically just and whenever I feel that I can actually do something, I'll actually start writing. I'm probably not one of those typical writers where I stick to a schedule and try to make sure I do so much per day. But by the same token, I do try to get my novels out in a relatively quick time frame, which I'm probably going a little bit too fast when it comes to what I'm doing, because I actually started my first novel October last year, and I'm already about halfway through the third novel in this series. So
I was just about to ask you, how long does it take you to write a novel?
The first one, it actually took me about 3 months, and then the second one, it actually took me a little bit longer because I was, really, really busy trying to promote and get everybody aware that the book was out, and just general getting things out there and making sure that there was promotional stuff to back it up. But in general, I think it takes me about between 2 and 3 months.
That's actually, I've interviewed a lot of authors, and I have to say that's a fairly fast writing process. So
you also got it. Go
continue?
ahead.
You also got, what were you about to say?
You're cutting out a little bit, so I'm not hearing everything you're saying.
Okay, Chris. So you have a relatively fast writing process. Do you use a freelance editor, or do you rely on the editors at the publishing company?
This first one, I actually relied on the editors of the publishing company. I wasn't exactly happy with that, and my first book is actually about to be republished because of that fact. I'm using a little bit of both in this case for the second one, and the reason being is because like I said, I don't really necessarily trust the editors there. I also have to admit that it actually took me probably an extra couple of weeks to get the first novel to the publisher, just because I spent a lot of time going back and forth just doing my own edits. I'm very particular when it comes to doing edits on my novels. So I try to do a lot of it before I even send it. Bad habit, I guess, but...
Actually, I'd say it's a great habit. And as far as you reading time travel books and writing them, I happen to be a thriller fan. And my favorite author, although I'll read everything including the cereal box, trust me, if I can get my hands on it, I'll read it. My favorite author, Brad Thor, says, don't write what you read, because that you understand the pacing and the plot, the speed at which the plot needs to move. And he's always fond of saying you almost have a mini PhD in that genre.
Never heard it put that way, but works for me.
Hey, I think
for me it was, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's great advice, because you know what you like to see in the books, and you also know what you don't like to see, which, like you said in your case with the time travel, is historical inaccuracies.
Yes, there's a little more to it, but the historical inaccuracies is the one key, or the most interesting key for me. If I don't see something that makes sense, then it does throw me off. There also has to be a logical pattern to the time travel as well. That may sound a little silly, but...
No, it makes sense to me. You probably wouldn't want to go through the headache of traveling through time just to go have dinner at Grandma's and then go home in a couple hours.
Well, in this case, I'm actually referring to making sure that if a person goes back in time, that they don't go back to a time that is impossible for them to have existed in the first place. Well, I mean, it's a little more complex than that, but the idea being that you don't want to make something so unrealistic that the reader is just going to put it down.
Oh, I totally get it. Chris, I'm going to ask you to hang on for just a moment, because guess what? Even in radio, there are bills to pay, so we are going to take a commercial break, and we will see you on the other side.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your healthcare? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their healthcare. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your healthcare, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your healthcare while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
All right, thank y'all for hanging in there with us while we paid those radio station bills. Chris, how does a software engineer come up with time travel, a time-traveling romance? I mean, the two seem so different.
Well, I mean, it's something that I've imagined for many years, and like I mentioned earlier, I started dreaming these ideas up when I was 16 years old. It took me 30 years plus to actually decide to write this, and now I'm actually sort of just getting into it. The software thing just sort of came up over the past few years as I graduated high school and went to college. I realized, hey, I got to make money, so the software portion of it just fell into place. The imagination still runs wild, so you eventually have to do something with it if you want to make it worth anything.
Oh, I think writers have some of the best imaginations in the world.
I think there's a lot of people that have really good imagination. They just don't have the gumption to actually turn that into a novel or anything like that.
Well, your host here will have to admit she just can't sit down and write, because I'll get a few thousand words into it and realize this just isn't something I find fun. But you put me in front of this microphone, and I'm having a blast.
Well, I guess there are limits to what everybody does. I tend to think there's a lot of people that actually have this. They just aren't necessarily interested in spending the time writing. You apparently don't really find it fun, but I'd be willing to bet that you could probably take the idea and give it a ghostwriter and turn it into a novel if you wanted to.
If I had the desire to, I probably could, but for now, I think I'll focus on the airwave.
Nothing wrong with that.
So, you mentioned you have ideas for another series. How soon on the heels of this one are you gonna start on the second series while you're still working on the first, or what are your plans for that?
Actually, I've already started working on that series. It's kind of funny because that portion or that series actually is something I sort of recently started dreaming up, and as I dreamt it up, I sort of said, you know what, I need to get this on paper before I forget it. And as I was finishing up my second novel, I started thinking this up and writing it down, and I'm basically writing the third novel in the Reversione series while I'm writing this other novel as well. Like I said, I think I'm about halfway through my third novel in the Reversione series, and maybe about a quarter of the way through the novel for the other series that I'm writing.
Wow, it sounds like you'll be on Coffee Shop a few times then. So, Diane and William, your main characters, do they ever misbehave and decide that they just aren't going to do what you want to do or want them to do, or do you not have that problem? Because I've talked to several writers and they just say that they're so much in the heads of their main character, they realize their main character just doesn't want to do something that they want them to do.
In all honesty, it's kind of hard to really say that they're out of what I expect. I will admit that the main character, William, his personality is based a lot on my own personality. So I kind of wrote that character. It's exaggerated, of course, but it's based a lot on my own personality. And, of course, I guess the rest of it just sort of falls into place with that.
Well, I guess that's helpful when you have a nice, compliant main character.
One of the main characters, anyway.
Oh, always helps if you can depend on one of them. So, do you write your books in first person, third person?
So I actually did it a little bit different with the style on these books. I did a little bit of first person, but I'm also switching the individual that's doing the presenting of the story. So in my case, I'm using my characters as the presenter for each chapter in the book. So they're the ones that are taking on the personality of that story, piece of the story rather, and their personality is where it's being presented from. I also do a lot of conversational intro into each section of the novel, so you get a lot of conversation going on between the characters as well.
Sounds
I
like
find that makes it a little easier to get into the story and gives the reader a sense that they're actually a part of the story at that point.
I was going to say, sounds like a great way to get your readers involved and draw them into your characters.
That was the intent. That was the hope anyway.
Do you ever have trouble when you're working on so many manuscripts and writing projects at once, keeping it straight what you're working on? Or are you just able to switch gears as you need to?
So far, I haven't really had too much trouble with it. I'm sure at some point with me doing so many different things that I'm probably going to have problems, but I do keep a lot of notes, and I try to make sure that any new ideas I have, I put them down in some form so I don't necessarily forget them. So far, though, I haven't really had a lot of problems switching gears between different things.
That's great. So do you have any problems with writer's block?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm just recently started writing, and my first novel started back in October last year. So as far as writer's block is concerned, I really haven't had a lot of time for that yet, and I don't think I've had a real problem coming up with anything to put into a story. If anything, I probably have had too much to put into the story and just had to figure out what to leave out.
Ah, yes, the inevitable slaying your darlings, taking out pieces of the story you love, but they just don't quite work.
Yeah, exactly.
That can be a real challenge in writing. So what advice...
Definitely is.
What advice...
I will add to...
Oh,
let me add something to that, because it's kind of funny you mentioned that. In this first novel, there's actually some pieces of it that if you read it on the face, you wouldn't actually understand why I put it in there. There is plans for the series, though, that will involve that piece of the story that I have intentionally left in there just for that purpose. My whole goal was to lead up to that fourth novel in the series, and so each of these elements that are in the different books that are coming up to that fourth series all have a piece that just won't make sense on the face of it, but eventually it will.
Now, you mentioned you spend a lot of time promoting your books. So what advice would you give to other authors out there on how they might be able to promote their books, and what paths have you found to be really effective?
Well, first thing I would mention is start early. Don't wait until your book is out there before you start promoting, because once it's out there, you haven't already done a lot of your promotional work, then nobody's going to buy it, at least not until the promotions really get in there, which means you're going to have a book that's going to go stale for a while, not being sold on the shelves. Start early, start as many different social media as you can. Facebook and Twitter, I would recommend putting out as much as you can on those, just to get people aware. Social media is a big key in the promotional aspect. The more you can get it out on those two social media, then the better chance you have of actually making your book do well. The other thing that I have found is that it's not always easy to find the alternative avenues to do your promotional work. I haven't actually done any book signing events yet, although there are plans to do that. I take that back. I actually have done one, but it was a minor one. But I haven't really gone out of my way to do a lot of book signing events. Most of everything I have done has been radio interviews and eventually a TV interview or two. The more you can get into the interviewing process and the more you can actually get into the book signings, the better chance you have of making your books do well.
That does sound like great advice on both counts. So you mentioned social media. So what does your online writers platform look like? What pieces of the social media spectrum have you used? Website, Facebook, Twitter, a blog?
All of the above. I have a blog which I use to present teaser chapters. I did a lot of that, in fact, for the first novel, and that's how I actually sort of forced myself to finish that first novel, is by putting those teaser chapters out there and getting feedback from people that said they want the book. And then, of course, I have a regular page that is devoted to myself and my novels coming out, and then, of course, a Facebook page for the novel series, as well as one for me as an author.
That sounds like
and then, of course, Twitter. And then, of course, Twitter, I have it an account that's associated to an author in this case.
That sounds like a lot of stuff to juggle.
Oh, believe me, it's definitely a lot. I have a lot of trouble keeping up with all of it, in fact.
Oh, I definitely understand and feel you, because I was actually asked, because my Twitter handle is at Jesse's POV, which is my main radio show. I call it my serious show, and Coffee Shop is my fun, laid-back show. And I was asked why I didn't have a separate Twitter handle for the Coffee Shop episodes. Well, unfortunately, my response was there are 24 hours in a day, and I can only do what I can do.
Well, believe it or not, I understand that. I actually have two Twitter handles, but one of them I don't use anymore just because it's just too difficult to keep up with all of the stuff. So
I understand and feel your pain. So what advice would you give to someone who they've written the manuscript? What advice would you give to that author who's sitting there going, I've got the manuscript written, I just don't know where to go next or what to do next?
Oh, wow. That's kind of hard to really give advice to someone who's written a manuscript, because it's all dependent on what they really want to get out of it. In other words, are you really looking to get a large audience? Are you looking to just publish, or are you really wanting to take it to a level where you're actually getting it out there for a lot of people to read? You have to consider the audience that you're trying to reach and what you want to do with the novel. For someone that is, some of the authors that I've actually talked with, their main goal was just to get a book out there. And so going the self-publishing route probably made the most sense for them. Not necessarily the cheapest sense, but it is a way to do it. For someone like me, I really wanted to get it out to a large audience. So what I would recommend for someone like that is probably want to go either to a literary agency, if you can find one, and believe me, that takes a while to do. Or if you're going to do it self-published like I did, start looking into the different self-publishing firms as soon as possible. Believe, or don't necessarily believe everything you read about them, because some of them are out to take you for everything they can get. So be careful there, but do a lot of research on the self-publishing firms and do as much research as you can into literary agencies that you can go with. And if you're going to go with a literary agent, start putting in query letters as quickly as possible. Don't do just one or two. Do as many as you can, because you're not going to get a lot of positive response. It's going to take a while.
I think that sounds like an excellent plan. So are you, as your book series progresses, are you going to maybe do other forms of advertising, an advertisement on Amazon or an advertisement on Google or anything like that? Or have you already done put some time and effort into those avenues?
I've done a little bit of advertising on Facebook, but in my case, I've actually hired a publicist who's doing a lot of this for me. Well, some of it anyway. He's basically the one that's getting me in front of the different interviews and what have you to present me and actually get me the exposure necessary to get people aware of my books. as far as advertising, it's actually kind of expensive to do that. So you got to be careful about what you do. Facebook was one of the easiest ways to do it, but it's also expensive if you do long term. As far as what I'm going to do in the future, I've already got a Facebook page that's devoted to the series and a large number of fans on it already. So I'm actually reusing it already for the next novel in the series. And I'll probably just continue with that.
I think that's great, and I think hiring a publicist was a very smart move on your part.
It was the logical move. It wasn't necessarily the cheapest move, but it was one of those things I figured would get my exposure out there and make it easier for me to actually get the word out that these books are there.
Like I said, I think that was a smart move. All right, as I do at the end of every episode of Coffee Shop, I always give my guests a chance to give out all their social media information. So why don't you take that opportunity now, Chris?
So Facebook, you can actually go to facebook.com/reversion without the book. Reversion, REVERSIONBOOK. And then you can also do a Google search for that novel and pretty much pull up just about any link you want from that, because that was another thing that I had to make sure happened as well, is to make sure that Google had a search reference to that novel to make it easier for people to find.
How did you create that Google search reference?
Well, it starts with putting the links out there first, and then once the links are out there, the more you can get those links into the search engine, the quicker it gets referenced from Google. The key is to actually get the links there first, and then the Google search will pick it up eventually once it's been there for some time. The other part of it is also getting it referenced from other places. So, for instance, the actual book itself, in order to get the novel out there, I sort of basically went through Facebook to put it in a Facebook page, and then having it on Facebook sort of picks it up on Google anyway. And that made it possible to actually extend that to other locations as well.
I think
the other thing is I also have a few articles out there that are somewhat related to the book, and that also helps to create Google references as well.
I think that sounds like excellent advice. Now, you mentioned a website. What's your website? What's your URL?
It's www.christopher-allen-jones.com, all in lowercase.
Awesome. And what's your Twitter handle?
ChrisAJ3499.
Cool. And where else should readers who want to find out more about your book look for you besides Facebook, Twitter, and your website?
Well, those are the main locations. Amazon's got some as well. Not really sure there is any other way to do it at this point. Buy the book.
I think you've covered most of your bases there, Chris. And I also think that it is time to refill my coffee and settle down with a good book. And as always, I can be found on Twitter at Jesse's POV. Or you can always shoot me an email at the station, jesse@klrnradio.com. And I will see you folks next week back here in the coffee shop.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk, or be harmful to your reputation? Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your healthcare? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their healthcare. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your healthcare, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your healthcare while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Come in store and you'll also get a 10-day sample of Double Wear Longwear Foundation in your perfect shade. Quantities are limited, so don't miss the Estee Lauder free gift. Now through August 23rd at Dillard's and Dillards.com.
The crew members at Raising Cane's only cook to order, which means they don't cook your food until you order it, for the freshest possible chicken fingers, fries, and toast. Be a back-to-school hero with Raising Cane's.
Come in store and you'll also get a 10-day sample of Double Wear Longwear Foundation in your perfect shade. Quantities are limited, so don't miss the Estee Lauder free gift. Now through August 23rd at Dillard's and Dillards.com.